Good evening and welcome to the new COVID Conversation series brought to you by the Boro Park Jewish Community Council. The purpose of this new series is to bring you expert advice, guidance, and support by top professionals in legal, accounting, and business. This is a new series. In the future, we hope to offer you guidance from top medical professionals and mental health professionals with the sole purpose of helping the community rebuild on the aftermath of this terrible tragedy of COVID-19. We are honored to have with us the renowned attorney, Aidala, who will be addressing business-related legal questions that business owners may have. Aidala is the founding partner of Aidala, Bertuna, and Caymans PC, a trial attorney and an on-air TV and radio legal analyst. Arthur is also the immediate past president of the Brooklyn Bar Association. We're honored to have with us the renowned attorney, Arthur Aidala.
Here on 13th Avenue in Brooklyn, New York, right down the block really from the heart of Boro Park, in my law firm, we've gotten a lot of business owners of all types coming in to seek some sort of relief from this international pandemic. And what they're seeking the relief from are the restrictions that the governor and the mayor has put on the city of New York. Under non-pandemic times, right, the governor or the mayor wouldn't have the power to shut places down, set curfews, et cetera, et cetera. Just remember, there was a time in April, I believe it was, there was a curfew. I remember leaving my office after doing legal work, and I didn't even get in the car. I walked home because I didn't want to get a violation myself, even though I was here doing legal work for someone who had gotten arrested. Technically, lawyers were not considered essential. It was very random what businesses were essential and what businesses weren't essential. Many people in different communities would say, why is a liquor store essential and has to stay open, whereas a barbershop where people groom cannot stay open? So there's a lot of hypocrisy and a lot of just duplicative information that then doesn't make sense in the long run. I would like to think, as the type of person that I am, Mayor de Blasio and Governor Cuomo are coming from a good place. They're trying to prevent the loss of more lives. My brother-in-law, Dr. Lawrence Haynes at Mamamani Hospital, said in 2 weeks around Passover of 2020, he saw more people die in Mamamani's hospital than he saw in 15 years of being a doctor. So those people who are really on the front lines, and he saw a lot of people from the Orthodox community in that hospital grasping for air. I think he said, like, if you take a fish out of the tank and throw it on the floor and they just can't breathe. So that's on one end, is the tragedy and the hurt and the loss that many people felt. Then on the other end are these people who started their own little businesses from $1, $2, $3. I represent people in the taxi cab industry. They are destroyed. The restaurants, my law firm represents many restaurants that are basically boarded up now. They're boarded up. And unless their landlord gives them some sort of relief, they're out of business. Some landlords can give relief because they own the building and they don't have to pay a check every month to a bank. But other landlords, they're on the hook to the bank to pay the money. So the landlord is saying, look, if you don't pay me the rent, I have to try to find someone to pay me the rent, except there's nobody around who's willing or in a position to pay the rent. So that's just from a very fundamental basis, the tragedy of the business world and the economy and the landlords who we represent, who the governor has said, look, you can't evict anybody right now. Okay, but the bank is not saying you don't have to pay the mortgage. So people are struggling on all the levels. You think of a landlord, oh, it's a rich person. Yeah, they're a rich person because they have tenants paying the rent and then they're paying the bank. But if the tenants aren't paying the rent and they can't pay the bank, they're at risk of losing their life savings in this property. And then you compound that with what the city did with enforcement. They wanted to make sure it was known in certain communities that these COVID restrictions were going to be abided by. And they sent building inspectors out, health inspectors out, et cetera, et cetera. And there were a lot of tickets that were issued. And my law firm was approached by several restaurants who wanted to come together as a team and basically hire us to bring a lawsuit to reopen. But we did the research. We did it all pro bono. We did the research, and we didn't think there was an avenue to relief. And in fact, there wasn't. I wouldn't take their money to bring a lawsuit that we didn't think we could win. They did find another law firm to do it. The other law firm did bring the lawsuit, and it was not successful. The governor and the mayor, under these historic health conditions, have the power to put these protocols into effect for a limited time. My suggestion to anyone who got any of these tickets is to fight them. I think every single person who got any form of a ticket should, if they have the resources to hire a lawyer, they should do it. Otherwise, they should just represent themselves, and they should fight it. The judges will have the power to dismiss these cases in the interest of justice. What I've heard is even the liquor license cases where these guys got $10,000 fines because they either said that they were open or they were allowing people inside when they shouldn't be inside. I had one case where there was outdoor dining and everyone's outside eating here in Brooklyn, New York, and all of a sudden it's a thunderstorm with lightning. So they allowed the people to leave their tables and come inside. And the liquor license people came and saw and wrote them a big, huge fine. What were they going to do? Tell people sit outside in the pouring rain with lightning? Of course they did the right thing. Not only did they allow their customers in their establishment, the table next to them was from the other restaurant. They let them in as well. So they're going to fight that. We're going to fight that. There is a degree in the justice system of common sense. And if the appropriate judges are the ones who are hearing these tickets, they can say, in the interest of justice, under these circumstances, I'm dismissing this. Also, the building inspector or the health inspector who observe these violations have to show up to these hearings, and a lot of times they don't. They're too busy, there's too many resources, and then they'll adjourn it one more time, and if they don't come out on the second time, it'll be adjourned. So no one should be taking out their, in my opinion, their checkbook and writing checks to the Department of Finance anytime soon. The government is here, and we pay all of these taxes to be in a position to help us during one of these national crises. Not just the federal government, not just the state government, but the city government as well. So helping us is opening things up and giving us money, not taking money back. The flip side is the mayor has to make sure, in the best of his ability, to make sure everyone stays safe. So if they put certain protocols in because they've seen that going to restaurants makes people touch and get too close and spreads the disease, well, for a limited period of time, they're allowed to do that. But they shouldn't be punishing restaurants that are trying their best just to keep their head above water. So my closing suggestion to anyone who has already gotten a ticket is to fight it. Even if you fight it yourself, you actually may garner more sympathy with a judge. You know, I was in my restaurant, I was cooking, they came, they knocked on the door, I didn't let them in because we were closed, and they shoved a violation under my door. And most judges who handle these types of cases will probably cut you a break. There could be a lot of constitutional issues that are eventually raised about what took place, and it'll be interesting to see how history views this period of time and how our rights were really condensed. You know, my faith, I wasn't allowed to go into a church for 3 or 4 or 5 months. The doors were locked. And the Supreme Court recently ruled that the governor was not able to do that. That was a lawsuit brought from the Brooklyn Diocese, actually, that went all the way up to the Washington Supreme Court. So history is going to view whether, from a health perspective, what we did was right, and from a legal perspective of what we did was right. But right now, obviously, everyone should be safe and follow the protocols that the healthcare professionals suggest. But at the same time, don't give up all of your legal rights that you're entitled to. The right against search and seizure. People can't just kick down your door and run into your house or your place of business with no reason or without a warrant or anything like that. So it's up to the public to follow the protocols, the health protocols, to keep us safe, but at the same time, always challenge the authority and make sure that what they're doing is permitted under the law. If you videotape what's going on in your building, at the same time you're getting a violation, to show that there is no violation, that evidence would be admissible, especially if you're the one who's putting it in there, because you could say, I'm the one who recorded it on this date, at this time, at this location. So it's verified, it's authenticated, and would be admissible to a judge.
We are now honored to have with us Saul Friedman, who will speak on business and accounting advice and how to prepare ourselves for another calamity, another challenge that may come towards our businesses. Saul Friedman is senior partner of his own well-established accounting firm, Saul N, Friedman Co. He oversees more than 25 professionals with a solid reputation of excellence in servicing businesses beyond the books, providing tax strategies, offering a vast network of services, and assisting clients to successfully navigate the business world. We are honored to have with us Saul Friedman.
I would like to thank Avi Greenstein of the Boro Park Jewish Community Council and the publishers of Ami Magazine, Yitzchak and Rechi Frankfurter, for giving me this opportunity, which I find very valuable, to address the Olam, the crowd, this evening, and speak a little bit about COVID, its after effects, and especially how to deal with unforeseen circumstances in the future. And I want to stress about what we can learn from COVID and how it's going to could affect our future, and to plan for the future. On our clients, between the 300-400 clients that we have, most of our clients are in manufacturing plants, distributorships, medical supply. They really didn't have a major effect of COVID, because even though temporarily they were closed down, but they were able to catch up, and they had a pretty good year. The people in real estate, whether it's residential or commercial, had some problems because rentals weren't coming in. They had some problems, and they still have, not catastrophic problems, but problems nevertheless. Restaurants and retail stores and construction companies, which we don't have that many, were really badly hit. As you all know, they were closed down, and they didn't have any revenue. So it depended on the kind of clients that you had, how they fared during COVID. But during COVID, we had a lot of help from the government. As you all know, we had 2 rounds of PPP loans, round 1 and round 2. A lot of our clients were eligible for the round 1, and they were helped substantially. Some of our clients, I would say half of them, were eligible for round 2. They applied for it and they got the money, and that really helped stem some of the losses. We are at the stage now where we have to ask for forgiveness of these 2 loans. Some banks are accepting applications for forgiveness. Some are not ready yet. So those that are ready, I would urge you all to file for forgiveness, and then you can treat it as a really tax exempt grant. You won't have to pay taxes on that money. It won't be a loan anymore. And if it's forgiven, then you have extra capital to work with in the future. So that was the effect of COVID on our businesses, and that was the effect of during COVID that we were able to get the help. I would urge you to go for forgiveness, because now everybody is going for it, and the SBA is really processing it quite quickly, because they want to get it off their desk, so to speak. What were the effects of COVID as we stand today? Everybody that has a manufacturing plant or a distributorship is dealing with one thing, and it's not really their fault. They cannot find employees. In other words, people don't want to work, and that is because the government extended the extra unemployment payments. Now it's all the way till September. Most of the minimum wage or even higher class employees say, why do I have to work? I can make a lot more money. One of the other effects of COVID that we had was a lot of people started working remotely. In other words, they worked out of their house, out of an office somewhere else, and they were working together with the business. In my practice, our staff in the beginning started working remotely, especially for professionals and certain industries. My own opinion is this working remotely is not going to last a long time because there are management issues with it. You get distracted when you work remotely. You have questions. You don't bother sitting down with other staff working out these questions. Every meeting you have to gather together people. In my practice, I found that working remotely is not. We cannot give a good service to our clients if we don't work together as a team in one location. In our practice, we have two main locations, one in Brooklyn and one in Lakewood. And I even find that the Lakewood office, since it's only a branch, has to come into the Brooklyn office periodically so we can see ourselves face to face. But nobody could predict a COVID. And likewise, nobody could predict what can happen in the future. So what I want to devote my time to a little bit is planning for the next COVID. Let's not call it COVID. Let's call it planning for something that we cannot predict. A year ago, or I should say a little bit more than a year ago, let's say in January of 2020, nobody was able to predict that something like COVID would come along and the whole American economy and the business world will be turned upside down. Nobody could predict that. Especially to the young people. Could you ever predict that in order to get a gallon of gasoline, you have to wait in line for 4 hours? Or that you're told that you can only have 5 gallons of gasoline per week? Or only a licensed driver can get gasoline? If I would tell you this will happen next year, you would think I'm crazy. But it has happened. Interest rates are 3% now. Prime is around 3%, prime rate. People borrow at prime, people borrow 1 point over prime. If I were to tell you that once upon a time in my career, prime was 22.5%, if I were to tell you that, what would you say? You would basically say that I'm crazy. Now, are you planning for an incident or for a circumstance where something is going to happen that you cannot predict? I'm usually challenged. Tell me what can happen. Why do I have to be so insistent on a plan? I said, because if I knew what's going to happen, how can I plan for it? We always have to plan in case another COVID happens, which means another unforeseen circumstance has you at the brink of going out of business. And we don't know what it is. It could be a real estate crash. It could be the fact that the government stops funding a lot of programs, which I doubt will happen in the next couple of years. It could be many, many different things. I don't even want to get into it because I don't know. Just going down the list of the things that I believe that you should plan. I'm not giving it necessarily in the order of importance, but just as I jotted it down as I thought about it. First of all, it's always good to maintain a crystal clear set of books. In other words, if you're running your business, in order for you to be successful in your business, you have to have a good set of books. As a matter of fact, I can tell you over the span of almost 50 years that I've been in this particular practice, I can categorically say the following. I have never seen yet a successful business without a good set of books. Good meaning reports, everything ties out, a good general ledger, analyzation of expenses. I've never seen that. Don't get me wrong. I didn't say that everybody that has a good set of books is matzliach, but I've never seen the reverse. I've never seen somebody be matzliach with his company without having a good set of books. So start off with that. If you have a line of credit or relationship with a bank, maintain it. Even when your line of credit is not needed, maintain it. You have a line of credit and you don't use it all year, you might lose it. Borrow once in a while, pay it back, so you have a track record. banks will work with you if you have a good line of credit. I can also say that during COVID, when a lot of our clients had cash flow difficulties because they couldn't collect their receivables, because the people that owed them the money said it's COVID, we don't have a bookkeeper, all kinds of excuses. The banks understood this. The banks worked with you because you have a good line of credit and you maintain yourself. So they were even to overlook. We have clients that failed their covenants and technically they were in default of the loans. The bank said, don't worry about it. We know it's COVID. We know that you're turning around. So that is very important to maintain your line of credit. Another very important thing, and I'm talking especially to the real estate industry, to the nursing home industry, to the industries that earn substantial amounts of money. And I say this all the time: take your profits, or some of your profits, take them off the table. In other words, let's use real estate. You sell a piece of real estate, you make $1 million. What do people normally do? And the same happens in the nursing home industry. They take the $1 million and they buy more real estate. They buy another nursing home. So your entire net worth is tied into your business. I believe very, very strongly, and I tell this to all my clients, let's say you made $1 million profit. Take $300,000, a third of it, or half of it. Take it off the table. In other words, take it out of your business. What do you do with it? Put it with a financial advisor, with a Merrill Lynch, a Wells Fargo, an LPL. Put it wherever it could be managed. You're not going to make 50% on your money. You're not going to make 25% on the money. In a good year, you can make 10, 15% on your money. But it's safe. You know it's there for a rainy day. I've told clients that you should plan your life or your business in such a way that if chas v'shulam another thing happens to your business and you're wiped out of business in one day to the next, they don't have to go out collecting for you for panusa. You shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. One day you'll have to marry off children, one day you're going to have to support your einiklach, whatever it is, you shouldn't be wiped off the table. So take money, please. Take money off the table and put it away for a rainy day. It doesn't all have to be in your business. Also, depending on how much money you make, watch your spending. You don't have to go and show off everybody you had a great, great year and you're spending who knows what. I don't even want to go into it. Savings are very important. People ask me, how much should I have savings? I suggest everybody should have savings, especially those that are in business and making money, at least 3 to 5 years of your annual salary or your annual expenditures. If you have a budget of, let's say, you're spending $300,000 a year, you should have $1 million to $1.5 million put away in a brokerage, a mutual funds or something like that, which is almost liquid. So if God forbid, chas v'shalom, something happens to you, you should be able to continue your mode of living without having to go to outsiders and looking like a pauper and getting wiped out. For that reason, I usually even suggest that people that have 1 or 2 buildings should not do a 1031, because if they do a 1031, they're basically plunking all their profits into the next building. And I've had experiences with clients that didn't listen to me and the second building didn't work out, so they lost everything and they had to pay taxes on the first building. It's also very, very good to have to be protected with a life insurance policy. I'm not going to go into whether it's whole life or term life or a combination of the two. You should be insured, let's say from age 25 to age 55, you should be insured that if chas v'shalom something happens to you, they can marry off the kids, the remaining spouse can live comfortably, and you should have that as a protection. They say that the Rebbe Eilish, the old Satmar Rebbe, they say, I don't know if it's true, that he had a $10,000 life insurance policy because he said, a goyot mazel, and the insurance companies have mazel, they'll never pay off because he's going to outlive the insurance. So he wanted to have that protection. So even for that reason, today when I hear that somebody died of COVID, chas v'shulm, or died of another illness, and they're raising keren yesoimim or things like that, I get very upset. In your young age, you can buy $1 million policy for less than $100 a month, and why shouldn't you have it? I once gave a lecture to people, and I started speaking to them, and I said to them, all you people that are dealing with Amazon, do you have a plan B? In other words, when you're dealing with one supplier or one company, you never know what happens. They can cut you off and whatever. Now what? We've had clients that were cut off from Amazon or cut off from major suppliers. Now, what is your plan B? Are you working to brand your name? Are you working to have your own website? Are you working on something else that you're not solely reliant on Amazon? This goes part of planning. Now that we've seen what can happen to an American economy and we don't know which business we'll get, please have a plan B. Maybe you don't want to work it, but at least have it in mind. So if you follow these guidelines, in B'yetz Hashem, anything that's going to hit us, with Hashem Yisburach help, it won't affect you personally, but it could. You have to protect yourself. This is the hishtadlus that you have to do in order to be successful in the future.
We're really excited to have as one of our presenters, Ira Zlotowitz. Many of our presenters during this COVID conversation series have focused on reactive advice and guidance for challenges that people have. Ira Zlotowitz will speak about how to take your business to the next level, how to learn from special lessons that we can all learn from COVID and build up your business to even higher heights as it was prior to COVID. Ira Zlotowitz is president of Eastern Union, one of America's largest commercial mortgage brokerage firms, employing more than 125 real estate professionals. Eastern Union closes an average of $5 billion in transactions annually in support of a client base extending across the United States. With a commitment to innovation and industry-wide disruption, Ira has aggressively integrated technology and market data into the company's business model. Ira has earned numerous accolades in the business world, including a listing on Crain's New York Business 40 Under 40. We're deeply honored to have Ira Zlotowitz present here today.
Avi, thank you for the introduction. Before I begin, I would like to give two thank yous. One, to the Boro Park JCC for putting together this post-COVID series. And second, to Ami Magazine for sponsoring this event. Many people look at COVID and they have, where do I go from here? I want to really give you a few takeaways that you could grow and prosper in the post-COVID world. The big thing that I always look at in business, and I keep hitting many times and tell staff and brokers in my office, is the key word is called reset. You have to very often hit the reset button. And then based on what you know today, move forward. Don't live in the past that's going to repeat itself. Use the information, the history of the past to go move forward. Let's hit reset. COVID is over. For all intents and purposes, moving forward in your life, you're moving forward as if COVID is behind us. I know for many of you, depending where you lived, COVID has been over maybe for a few months already by now, but COVID is over. The biggest point that COVID became over was when they started an announcement in New York City opening. They announced the public school system is never going to have a snow day. I remember thinking by the first time they had remote learning, I said, this is it. There's never going to be a snow day ever again. They just announced it. On the banking side where I'm in, the banks also changed. It used to be that committee at a bank. They would say, oh, your committee for your deals on Wednesday. Oh, one banker didn't show up. There was a problem. Was it this delay, that delay? It's not happening. I don't think any committees will ever be delayed either. Everyone is using Zoom, different technology, different platforms, remotely. There will never be a missing on a committee to move forward. So what I really want to focus on are things that you could take in your own business and trends that I've been seeing in my own company to apply practical things you can walk away with. So like someone brought up to me, even as before I was coming up here to speak, which is the obvious. The one thing that is the same is that the world is run by the Bornstein. God set us up and is basically saying is, for anyone who thought they're in charge, God shook it up and said he's in charge. So the same ingredients you're going to have to be successful is going to be there. You have to put in your establis, you're going to have to daven, and you have to give your tzedakahs. That's never going to change. I think what changed is what is called the Ishtatus. So when I look at COVID coming to the table is that COVID brought the year 2030 to 2020. When I used to sit in meetings with people about technology, where things are going to change in the world, please, it's not here for another 10 years. Those 10 years just sped up. But there's more of a fundamental change also came in these during COVID. What changed is that many businesses obviously are, for the average owner of a business, is probably in their 50s or 60s. That's what I would guess, if you take the overall average. Those people started their career, think about it, 30 or 40 years ago. So in that mindset, business was where you came to your office 40 hours a week, 5 days a week in an office. They frowned upon part-time, they frowned upon people working remotely. You had isolated cases, and they didn't want to adapt to technology. It is true. Having a Zoom meeting all day is not the same as in person. Having people come to an office or working at home is not the same. No one's going to argue with you. But you have to hit the reset that today where there's a mindset and a technology change. And these changes are permanent. It is never going to go back, ever. So I think it's time to hit the reset. Reset based on what we are today and say, how do we make today better? I mean, think about it. In preparation for this speech today, I actually went on to Zoom. And I wanted to see, what did Zoom come out with? You think Zoom is just cha-ching all the money that everyone's using Zoom and making a killing and they put it straight to the bottom line? They also are nervous people may go back to the office. They're coming out with all different things that are on their list to make the Zoom experience a different experience. Allow different features, security, technology changes to Zoom. Some of the things we put embedded in our office. It might be a slight change for you. I never knew you could share two screens at the same time. I thought either you have one thing you're sharing or your whole computer screen. But let's go more into specific. What's really the fundamental change and what do you have to adapt to change? So the situation is as follows. There's something called a gig economy. A gig economy has been brewing and brewing and brewing. What is a gig economy? Think about a magician. Think of a singer. They are gig performers. You're making a birthday party at home. You want to have someone come perform for your kid. You hire someone that's going to come. They price very high per hour, but you only pay them for that job and they go home. If they would get a job 40 hours a week, they wouldn't earn the same amount of money. Take Uber, for example. When Uber first came out, everyone looked at Uber and said, what, they're going to pay so little? To go to the airport, I live in Lakewood, to go to Newark Airport is, let's say, $150 round job to go to the airport. And now with Uber, it's only $100 to go. So people said they're making less money. It's not really true. Because the reason why the driver charged $150 is because they went one way and they got paid and they went zero on the way back. If they were lucky, they may pick up a fare on the way back. Now, an Uber driver, from the time an Uber driver leaves his house in the morning, picks you up at your house, goes to the airport and comes back, every minute he's making money. So on a round trip now, he makes $200 instead of his $150. So it depends which way you look at it. This gig economy went through the whole entire industry. And this is what's sped up here. There are certain technologies that I know as a company that we implemented by us that allowed the company by us to grow at levels I never thought were possible. Pre-COVID, we were a commercial mortgage company. We had a group of 40 brokers. Primarily, they were based in our local offices. Wherever we had an office, that's where they were based. The conventional wisdom is people have to be in an office to be trained, in an office to learn the business, in an office to be successful. When we adapted, as soon as COVID hit, to moving into Zoom, like people ask me, where's my office today? It used to be in the car, traveling from meeting to meeting. My office right now is in Zoom. So the Zoom office I have, over this last year, we were able to prove to grow from 30 brokers to over 75 brokers. And almost all the brokers were trained and hired without meeting them. We hired underwriters and secretaries, executives, marketing people, every department via Zoom. So it's how quick are you going to adapt? But with that, there were a few technologies that had to get more widely accepted in order to be able to adapt to this. So if I was recommending, and I speak to people in businesses, and if you follow me on LinkedIn, I talk about this all the time, is there's two technologies that was really a game changer. Email is old school. WhatsApp is old school. Text is old school. Today, companies are communicating via a platform either in Slack or like Microsoft has Microsoft Teams. That's the way to communicate. It takes the best of email, the best of WhatsApp, the best of text messaging, and puts it all together. In our community, having people are very sensitive to the internet and different protections you want on your phones, Tag actually prefers moving over to Slack. It's a business platform. It's an enclosed environment, just people in your company. But it's not just a communication back and forth. it could sync and talk to all different systems that your company uses. You have a CRM, you have a sales CRM, you have orders coming in, you have things taking place. You could communicate within your organization and invite guests from outside your organization. That was one. Number two, we came out the second was, it's not ours, it's ClickUp. So people are familiar with like a to-do list or project management tool. ClickUp is the latest and greatest in that world. What ClickUp allows a company to do is have everyone working in the company, their whole entire list, their tasks, whatever they're doing, their project management, where they store passwords, where they store information, if you're using graphics or video, wherever you're storing everything, and everyone that's on a specific project could track where it's up to and what part of the project is their role. So now you take these two technologies. So let's go back for an example we did in the office by us. A year ago, we went as a company, I wanted to offer an internship. Once I was anyway doing everything over Zoom, it was very easy. What's the difference if I had 50 people, 100 people, or 1,000 people? It's just a matter of how much you pay Zoom. So because of that, we were able to do a summer internship. We had over 500 people worldwide. How did they communicate with each other? We gave them access to a Slack channel. They were on Zoom, and all the communication tools went from there. One thing we changed, and I'm noticing a few companies are telling me doing similar the same, is that now we have a new person on staff that never existed before. We have a video editor full-time. Since everything's on Zoom, and it can be recorded, we have someone right now that records every Zoom meeting and then edits it and splices out the garbage that's not relevant. So tomorrow someone missed the meeting, here's a copy of the meeting that you missed. For training, every training class, it's not like, someone is not in the office, they missed last week's training class. How do they get it? Things are recorded. So when you're sitting here today and you step back, this is what's changing. This technology platforms are here. They're getting big venture capital money behind them to keep making them better and user-friendly. But what did this allow in the gig economy? Where I personally think over the next year, if you're listening to this and you work for somebody, this is the greatest time for you. Today is a worker's market. If you speak to anyone doing job placement, there are more people that are looking to hire than are available for jobs, which means off the bat, you don't have to raise the minimum wage. It's supply and demand. Someone is coming into an office today is getting paid more than they were getting even a year ago or 2 years ago. Number one. But more importantly, this is what's really happening. The gig economy is coming across. It used to be, I need someone to do graphical work for me. Let me go to India, get someone in another country. Now you can have high-level work here, right in the United States, people that you know and trust. And this is what's happening. And the actual story came to my office. You take someone that's a marketing genius. They could be creative. They could figure out how to market things for your company, but they need to make a full salary. They need to earn a $250,000, $300,000 salary. How many companies can afford to have a CMO, chief marketing officer pay that kind of money? Very, 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 very few. And even if they could afford it, you have to look at it. They don't have 40 or 50 hours a week just to that high level work. They have all different levels of work. Do basic video editing, a basic ad, put things in the paper, track me on social media, different types of things. So the gig economy works as follows. Many of these executives, and it's not just in the marketing end of it, it's for the CTO, the C-suite. People do technology. We have the same thing. Our CTO is a gig economy. It just works for us on 10 hours a week. We have someone that's working CIO, the same exact thing. Bring on people to different executive positions. You pay them when you need them, the gig economy. How does it work? Why does the math work? And where's the shakeup going to come in companies? Number one, the math works as follows. Somebody that was going to make a $200,000 salary at that caliber, and you'll bring the same exact math to whatever level you're at in your pay. Someone's at $200,000. I don't need a $200,000 CMO all day long. Let's say that's your view. But you'd love to have that person make the difference of signing off to your ads. So instead, you could hire that person on an hourly basis, $150 an hour, or $200 an hour, which you do volume $125 an hour. That person now, instead of working for one boss and spending part of the day being miserable and being nervous that there's a target on the back for the high pay, that person changes the approach and says, I have now 4 bosses. They give the equivalent of 10 hours a week to 4 different companies. They take $5,000 a month or $4,000 a month. They are now earning the same $200,000 with a lot more flexibility in terms of and security. If one customer has a problem, they lose 1/4 of their pay. But more importantly, if there's also not such a big target on the back, a company could afford a high-level executive at that pay. So these concepts were very foreign a couple of years ago. I need someone in my office. Then that's the mindset that changed. Number 2, because you have technologies like ClickUp, where it doesn't make a difference where they're sitting, they could actually track and see everything in live in the same order, you also have Slack. You could communicate. Everyone could communicate at the same time. So in my office, I want to tell you the extreme. People ask me, what's the extreme I noticed in my office? We started coming back to the office. As more people come back to the office, there are some meetings that we do not even have in person. So when we have a Zoom call that's scheduled every week at a certain time, it's sometimes more beneficial to still have a Zoom call. So we could have a meeting where there's 3 people in different offices within the same building and then even walk into the same room. So let's talk the future of office. Now you could say this is a level of extreme. Let's take the real future of office and analyzing. I get to read up on reports from the largest landlords, largest companies, seeing reports from some of the biggest research firms of what's really happening. Is it true you need people to work together? 1,000%. Do you have to have a certain level of working? You want people, you can't just stay at home? 1,000%. But just remember, people tasted going at home. They tasted not having traffic. This is where the future is in, from my research coming back and blend with my own opinion. It's going to end up becoming a flexible 3-day work week at an office for most of the jobs. Most of the jobs, it's really important that you should build that team, that family, that whatever type of environment, that culture you want to build in your office, but you could accomplish that with 3 days a week. The other days, someone could work from home. But even the 3 days a week doesn't have to be 9 to 5. I think people are going to stop working during rush hour. They could start at home in the morning. They'll leave their house at 9 o'clock. They'll drive at 9, get to the office without rush hour. They'll be less stressed out. They'll work their day much calmer in their environment. But one thing I'm finding in offices is even today, where you're sitting here post-COVID and people coming back to the office, very few people, I remember my dad in blessed memory who used to say, I have to go to the office on a Sunday just to check the mail, or over a weekend just to check a few things. When's the last time someone had to go to the office because paper is on the desk, or files on the desk? Everything moved digital. So once it moved digital, even if there is an office, who says it has to be that same physical office? It has to be more group setting. So companies will start having every couple of weeks, a day everyone comes into the office, an evening everyone comes to the office, or twice a week, different shifts. Who's to say you will have an office? A WeWork type style. If you have a company that has an office in New York, in Brooklyn, in Boro Park, why can't you have set up a space in Lakewood for a couple days a week, Brooklyn work a couple days, and you overlap 1 or 2 days a week. But also, if you come into the office less frequently, the layouts of the office are going to be different. You can have much more open space, because when you come into the office, you just have to do your thing and network with the office and move there. The world clearly changed. My message is there's a ton of opportunity. The one thing that I think in hitting the reset that's crucial is as follows. Keep striving for the new world. Take advantage of the opportunities that are there. And remember, don't build on in the past. It was reset. It's a master reset. Welcome to the new way of doing business. The world is run by the Rebbeinu Shalom, and he can make you successful in every way, but you got to do your ishtadlus. There's a new post-COVID ishtadlus. Take advantage of it and make the best of it, and best of luck in everything you do.
We will now hear a presentation by Avraham Bornstein, CPA, on the topic of government funding during the COVID era. Avraham Bornstein is a certified public accountant, experienced in accounting, taxes, and audits in various industries, including nonprofits. In addition, he works with established businesses on accounting procedures, compliance, and data analysis. He is currently helping companies receive the maximum payroll credits approved by the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan. We are honored to have Avraham Bornstein, CPA.
Thanks to the BPJCC for organizing this very important event, and a special thanks to Avi Greenstein, the CEO of BPJCC, who from the beginning of the pandemic has helped so many individuals in so many different ways. He has helped so many people by informing them of what programs there is available to them. Over the past year, so many individuals and businesses were financially impacted by the pandemic, but at the same time, there was financial relief coming from the federal government. Now, since a lot of the relief can be requested on your 2020 tax return, which has been delayed to May 17, 2021 for this year, it's a good time to review what you should have already received and what you can expect on next year's return. Let's begin with the stimulus payments. The first stimulus payment was sent in April of 2020. It was $1,200 per individual and $500 per child who was less than 17. The second payment was sent in December of 2020. It was $600 per person, and the IRS sent those two stimulus payments based on your 2019 or 2018 tax return, whichever they had on file at the time. If you did not get it, or if you got less than the full amount, so let's say you had a child in 2020 and you did not get a stimulus payment for that child, the only way to get it is by filing a 2020 tax return. Social Security recipients usually don't file a tax return. They should have gotten the stimulus check automatically, but if they did not get it, they need to file a $0 tax return and they will receive the stimulus payment as a refund on the return. To be eligible, you must have a Social Security number. So if you had a child, a baby, you should get a Social Security number so that you can get the stimulus payments. The stimulus payments have a phase out. For married couples, it starts to phase out at $150,000 of income, and for singles, it starts to phase out at $75,000 of income. It's phased out at a rate of 5% for the amount that's above $150,000. So if you earned $160,000, which is $10,000 more than the phase out, then it's reduced by 5% of that, which is $500. However, if you received the stimulus payments and when you file your 2020 return, you're above the phase out threshold and you are not eligible for the full amount, there is no requirement to return the stimulus payments that you have already received. The third stimulus payment was sent in March of 2021 of the current year. It was $1,400 per person. That was based on your 2019 return or your 2020 return if you had already filed. If you did not get it, you should file a 2020 return, and once they have your information on file, they will send you the $1,400 payment per individual. It's best to e-file and put in direct deposit information for your refund because mail is taking very long for the IRS to process. So again, don't mail your return. You should send it by e-file and request your refund by direct deposit. If you received less than what you should have gotten based on your 2019 return, now when you file your 2020 return, if you have more dependents, the IRS will send an additional check for that additional dependent. The phase out for this third stimulus payment, the $1,400, starts also at $150,000 per for a couple and $75,000 for a single, but it's fully phased out at $160,000 for married filing jointly and at $80,000 for a single. So if you filed your 2020 return before you got the stimulus and your income was $160,000, you will not receive anything from this stimulus regardless of how many dependents you have. However, if you file a 2021 return and on that return you don't have $160,000 of income, you will receive the stimulus payment. Again, it starts to phase out at $150,000 and it's fully phased out at $160,000 for married filing jointly and $80,000 for a single. Let's talk about unemployment compensation. So the first $10,000 of unemployment income, $10,200 actually, is not taxable if your income is less than $150,000. However, New York State decoupled from that rule and they do tax that amount. If you already filed your tax return and you pay tax on the unemployment income, which is not taxable, the IRS advised not to amend your return. They will calculate what is due to you and they will send you a refund. They said that they will start sending it out in May. However, it's very important. If this adjustment, meaning by reducing the $10,000 of income on your return, you're eligible for a new credit, which you did not claim, let's say the earned income credit, the IRS will not take that into consideration when sending you the refund check. So it's very important to go back to whoever did your tax return and show them what your refund amount is and ask them if you could have gotten more had they filed a return knowing that that amount is not taxable. Now let's talk about the earned income credit and child tax credit, which is based on your income. So if your income in 2019 is more than your income in 2020, you can use either of the two incomes to calculate these two credits, and whichever will give you the higher credit, you can use that to calculate the credit. Another few small things is that an educator can deduct up to $250 from their income for supplies or PPE. Also, if you don't itemize your deductions, you can take a charitable deduction of $300 for this year. Next year will be a little bit more, but for this year it's $300. Individuals may deduct qualified contributions up to 100% of their income. This will also be in 2021. And a corporation can deduct qualified contributions up to 25% of its taxable income. Contributions that exceed these amounts can be carried over to next year so you don't lose it. If you received a PPP loan or an Aidala advance, the Aidala advance was $1,000 per employee up to 10 employees. Both of them, I mean, if you received a PPP loan forgiveness, don't have to be paid back. It is not considered income and you do not have to pay tax on it. Also a reminder, if you did not yet get your second PPP, or if you didn't even apply for your first one, the expiration date to apply is May 31, 2021. So they might extend it, but if you did not do it yet, you should do it before May 31. Also, they're increasing the Aidala loan amount, which up until now it was capped at $150,000. They are increasing it now to up to $500,000. Again, the Aidala loan is a loan. The interest rate is 2.75%, and it can be paid back in 30 years, and the first installment is due 24 months after you receive the loan. Another big thing from the CARES Act, or even before the CARES Act, was the paid sick and family leave for 2020. So businesses were able to receive a payroll credit for paid sick leave and paid family leave they paid to employees. The way it worked was as follows. If a business paid their employee for up to 2 weeks for paid sick leave that they were sick due to COVID or quarantined, they were able to receive a refund for up to 2 weeks capped at $5,110 per employee. Then there was the paid family leave. So if an employee could not work because they had to care for a child who was 18 years or younger, and their school or place of care was closed due to COVID, the business was required to pay them 67% of their regular pay, capped at $10,000, and they were able to receive that as a refund. Now, self-employed individuals can claim the paid sick leave and paid family leave on their personal income tax return. So, if you have a 1099 income or Schedule C on your tax return, you can get the paid sick leave and paid family leave. The way it will work is as follows. Your income will be divided by 260 days, because that's usually the working days. That's 52 weeks times 5 days a week. That will give you your daily earnings. Once we have your daily earnings, you can take up to 2 weeks, which is 10 days of paid sick leave, which you will get fully refundable, and up to 50 days, which is 10 weeks of 67% of your daily earnings, which is fully refundable. Also, if your 2019 income was more than your 2020 income, you can calculate your paid sick and family leave based on your 2019 income, which will give you a higher refund. Let's talk about the employee retention credit for 2020. So in 2020, the employee retention credit was only for businesses or companies who had payroll. A self-employed individual cannot take it. So based on your payroll, you were able to receive a retention credit of 50% of the employee's pay, up to $10,000 of payroll, so that gave you $5,000 per employee. However, before it was December 27, 2020, you could not take both the PPP loan and the employee retention credit. You can either take the PPP loan or the employee retention credit. So most businesses took the PPP loan because that was more money than the employee retention credit. However, on December 27, 2020, with the passage of the appropriations package, businesses can now take the employee retention credit retroactively to March 13, 2020. There are two ways to be eligible for the employee retention credit in 2020. Again, in 2021, there is a different method of being eligible for the employee retention credit, but in 2020, it was either you had a 50% deduction in gross receipts in any quarter of 2020 compared to the same quarter in 2019, or you had a full or partial suspension of operations due to a government order. So, if you're eligible in 2020, you can claim, in 2020 you were able to claim it on your 941. However, since they changed it retroactively, the way to claim it now is by amending your 941 and claiming the $5,000 per employee on an amended 941. Again, a lot of businesses don't know it, that they can go back to last year and claim the employee retention credit. Again, if you need help with this, you can reach out to BPJCC or to myself, and we can help you get this credit retroactively to March 13 of 2020. In the current year of Q1 and Q2, the first quarter and second quarter of 2021, if you had a deduction, a 20% deduction in gross receipts compared to the same quarter in 2019, you are also eligible for the retention credit. It's much higher. It's 70% per employee, up to $10,000 of payroll, which gives you $7,000 per employee per quarter. So if you had a deduction in gross receipts in 2021, you can claim it on your 941, the employee retention credit. Let's talk a little bit about the American Rescue Plan for 2021, which is a few credits, a few changes to your 2021 tax return, which we're going to be filing in February, March, April of 2022. The first major thing is that the legislation raises the child tax credit from $2,000, which only $1,400 of that amount was refundable, to $3,000 per child. If you have a child under 6, it is $3,600 per child, and also it goes up to 17-year-old, meaning if a child that's 17-year-old, you're also eligible to receive the tax credit for that child. And it is fully refundable. The full amount is refundable. The legislation also calls for an advance payment as frequently as monthly, starting on July 1 of 2021 and ending December 31, 2021. The monthly payments are equal to 1/12 of the annual advance amount. So you're going to receive half of your child tax credit in 2021, meaning from July till December, and the other half you'll request on your 2021 return, which we'll be filing in the beginning of 2022. There is a phase out for this credit. Amounts of the credit which are above the $2,000 start to phase out at $150,000 for married filing jointly and $75,000 for singles, and the remaining $2,000 does not start to phase out until your adjusted gross income is $400,000 for married filing jointly and $200,000 for singles. Also, the earned income tax credit, if you had investment income of $3,650, you were not eligible to receive the earned income tax credit. You lost that whole credit. They changed that. Going forward, only if you have $10,000 of investment income, that's when you start losing it. And this will stay permanently for all years going forward. They will adjust for inflation, but they upped it from $3,650 of investment income to $10,000 of investment income to be eligible for the earned income tax credit. Let's finish with another major thing for the upcoming year is the child independent care credit. So up until 2020, if both parents worked and you had children who are under 13 years old, who you paid tuition for, you paid dependent care for, there was a non-refundable credit which was worth 20 to 35%, depending on your AGI, of what you paid for tuition or dependent care. The max that you could have paid was $3,000 for one qualifying person, $6,000 for another qualifying child, and it was 20 to 35% of that amount, and it was non-refundable. Thanks to the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, the amounts you can claim for this credit have increased. So starting with your 2021 taxes, you'll be able to claim up to $8,000 of expenses for one qualifying person, $16,000 of expenses for two or more qualifying people. So if you had these expenses, 50% of your expenses will be fully refundable if your AGI, which is your adjusted gross income, is less than $125,000, and if your gross income is more than that, the percent starts to go down. You don't get the full 50%, you get less. But again, this credit, which is now refundable and is 50% of $8,000 or $16,000, is only if both parents work, if there is income for both parents. Again, thank you very much to BPJCC and to Avi Greenstein for organizing this event. And again, if you need help with any of this, don't hesitate to reach out to the BPJCC or to myself, and we'll try to help you. Also, a very special thanks to our sponsor, Ami Magazine, for hosting this event. Thank you.
So many people have addressed questions to us, legal questions on government funding. People are very concerned, unaware. So we brought here Benjamin Goldburd, attorney, who will be addressing some of the questions that came to our attention, and he will also be answering questions that you may have. You can share those questions at info@bpjcc.org. Benjamin Goldburd joined the partner Goldburd Co firm after working in the accounting and private equity fields. He received his JD from Fordham University School of Law. He served as a student attorney for the university's tax clinic and obtained his Bachelor of Science magna cum laude in accounting from Brooklyn College. He is presently a partner in the firm. We are honored to have with us, addressing your legal questions, Benjamin Goldburd.
Thank you to all those that have participated in sending in questions regarding the SBA, PPP, and EIDL loan programs. We have tried to go through as many of the questions as possible and to kind of sift through which questions might best serve the community. There are some updates that only apply to the second round of PPP, such as the requirements for smaller size, where a second disbursement can only be released for businesses that have less than 300 employees. But there are other aspects, such as the expansion of permitted uses under the PPP program, like usage of the 40% versus the 60% of payroll, where you can use on expenses for your business. Now, those items were amended for the PPP and apply both to the PPP-1 and the PPP-2. You can use the 40% expenses to do expenses on damages that were based on the looting that happened during the crisis, as well as health and safety equipment for gloves and masks for employees in order for them to come in safely into your place of work, or that were going out into the workforce areas. One important item that is notable for the second disbursement and the first disbursement based on the update is that the SBA and the IRS all declared that PPP funds are deductible and non-taxable when used for expenses. Previously in the PPP-1, we were unsure as to the taxability of the forgiveness as well as the usage of the PPP funds for expenses and whether those would also be expensed. Now it has been made clear that everything is tax-free as well as expensable if those expenses would be expensable on your regular tax return. You're only allowed to use PPP funds or the EIDL loans for the business that you applied for. Only that business was deemed eligible and granted the loan. Now, if you were not eligible and you might have another business that would be eligible, the right thing to do is to return the funds and then reapply fresh. You can't change and move your funds from one to the other because it each requires their own allowance by the SBA and the own due diligence by the SBA for who is receiving the funds and for what. And the required usage of the funds is not to be transferred to another corporation because the SBA will follow where the funds go. So the right way to do this, return the funds and then reapply for the loan under the allowable corporation. The way that unemployment benefits work is that you can collect it if you are not employed and are not receiving funds from a payroll system, either your own or from your employer. So you have to focus on being able to apply correctly and honestly. Now, if you are self-employed and therefore you have the ability to both collect PPP and unemployment, the only legitimate way to do this is by staggering it, which means outside the period where you can take PPP funds, you can collect unemployment. But if you're within your covered period and you were paying yourself PPP funds, then you can't collect unemployment. That is not a legitimate way of collecting unemployment. So therefore, the only remedial action that one can do is to return the funds and therefore reapply under a different set of dates. That way you are being honest and true to the unemployment application as well as the PPP program. Commission-based employees are typically independent contractors. If you received a 1099, you're not an employee, you're an independent contractor. And independent contractors are allowed to apply directly for the PPP. The only way that an employer is able to use you as a PPP applicant, it's if you are a full-time W-2 employee, as a payroll person. As an independent contractor and a commission-based employee, you can't actually be called an employee. You are an actual independent contractor, and any salary, quote unquote, that you receive is actually just a draw against your future commissions that you may or may not have to pay back based on your contract. So therefore, what the right thing to do is to apply yourself based on your previous year's earnings, and that way you can receive PPP on your own, not through your employer. For instance, if you run a healthcare company and you used to have employees that worked for you to do, let's say, home healthcare, and then you couldn't find home health aides to assist you. So you went out to an agency to take on those contractors to do your work. you can't take PPP for those contractors because the company that's employing them is the one that's taking PPP. It's the same thing here. An independent contractor is their own business. You report your income on your Schedule C based on your 1099. That Schedule C can be used to go and apply for your own PPP loan and get it paid directly to you. It should not go through your employer. This is unfortunate. The rules outline that a business who is primarily engaged in passive real estate ownership is ineligible. So the question here really is, what is the main service of the company? Is it plumbing services? Is it outside contractor services? Or is it real estate? And if it is a full pivot where they predominantly are a service-based company, then they might be eligible. But if their primary focus is real estate ownership and they just wanted to keep their employees busy and therefore started sending a little bit of them out, then it's really not the primary focus of the business and therefore it should be ineligible. So what makes a primary business? Exactly what it sounds like. You have to make a good faith analysis of your business. Probably should go to an attorney or an accounting firm to do a full-fledged analysis of this as to what is about 80% of your business. If the bulk of your business is derived from the real estate ownership, then 80% of it would be indicated on your income. But if the split is the reverse, where most of the services are based on management, plumbing services, real estate management, then you could be eligible because the primary focus of your business is not real estate passive ownership. And now a bonus question, which I didn't receive much of it, and those that I did, the questions seem to have a bit of confusion as to what exactly goes into this program. And this program is separate from the PPP and the EIDL, and this is called the Employee Retention Tax Credit, the ERTC or the ERC, depending on who you speak to. And this program is something that should be focused on. It can be just as effective, if not more effective, than the PPP. Both the CARES Act and the CAA created a refundable tax credit for 2020 and 2021. If you keep your employees paid and employed, not while you're using PPP funds, you can use these credits to really get back a lot of the funds spent on your employees. For 2020, the credit was 50% of your qualified wages, and for 2021, it is 70%. For 2020, you're eligible if you had a shutdown of some sort on your business or had less than 50% gross revenue from the same payroll quarter in 2019. For 2021, the gross revenue number is less than 80%. Most people probably qualify for this, certainly in the first quarter of 2021. Businesses were just reopening. There is good chance that you actually qualify for this straight off the bat in 2021. Even if you do not meet the gross revenue dips required, the 50% or the 80% in either 2020 or 21, you may still be entitled to the shutdown allowance. If a government mandate states that you had to be either fully shut or partially shut, you can qualify for this program. And a lot of businesses are unsure as to whether they do or do not qualify, but the truth is it should be looked at, because even if a part of your business was shut, you can qualify as long as there are certain ratios that bridge that requirement in terms of whether you are partially shut down, fully shut down, or not. But an attorney or an accountant should look at your business to be sure whether or not you qualify for this program, because the benefits can be huge. And it's also important to note that this benefit can be used retroactively to amend your prior year's payroll tax returns, and it can also be used to front load your current expenses prior to you expending them for your payroll quarters going forward. So this can not just be used to get cash that was previously used, it can also be used to increase your liquidity now in 2021. So it is definitely something that should be looked at by a professional as soon as possible. In closing, before you do anything and before you discount a program or you apply for forgiveness or you do anything with regards to these government programs, understand that there are professionals that have researched this and have been doing this day in and day out. There are people on this panel, myself, who have to do this day and night for clients. It is easier to fix something before you've submitted it than after you've done something wrong and then have to amend it. The most important thing is to get good help and good advice before you make any moves. We are definitely here to help.
We would like to thank our wonderful sponsors who gave us the ability to present this COVID Conversation series. AMI Magazine has been our exclusive media sponsor, and AMI has not only helped us with sponsoring this event, but also prepare. We would like to thank Maimonides Medical Center, our premium sponsor. Maimonides not only helped us with COVID Conversation Series, but Maimonides also is a strong supporter of the Boro Park Jewish Community Council and many other endeavors in the Boro Park community and beyond. And we're grateful to have Maimonides Hospital as one of our strong supporters in all the services we do throughout the year. We would like to take this opportunity to thank as well our corporate sponsors, Hamaspik of Kings County, Ezra Medical Center, Toys for You, Atlantic Stone, Fidelis Care, and Boro Park Center. Thank you once again to all our dear presenters, professionals who took from their time to share their guidance and their knowledge, share information to benefit all of you. We are so deeply grateful for all the presenters, and thank you for joining us. A reminder, for any questions on any of the topics you heard here today, feel free to reach out to info@bpjcc.org, and we will respond to all your questions in a timely manner. We want to remind all our dear viewers, you can always reach out to the Boro Park Jewish Community Council for all your social services needs. We will help you in every way we can. Please feel free to visit our state-of-the-art location in the heart of Boro Park at 1310 46th Street on the 3rd floor. You can reach out to us for an appointment at 718-972-6600. We look forward to seeing you. We look forward to servicing you. And once again, thank you for joining us.